Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Cracked Case. Today's video is a bit different, so make yourself comfortable and enjoy watching me work on this eye makeup look. So let's get started. Today's story is heartbreaking and honestly so shocking because it involves someone who looked completely ordinary on the outside. No one saw it coming, and that's what makes this case so terrifying. We're going to get into who Chris Watts was and what his marriage was like and how they first started. With that being said, let's get into it. So let's start from the very beginning. Chris Watts was born in Spring Lake, North Carolina in May 16th, 1985. And here's the thing, his childhood was not so awful, especially coming from someone who committed something so awful. There weren't major abuse claims, no violent incident, no big red flags. He grew up in a stable home with both parents. But what did people say about him was that he was extremely quiet, like so quiet to a point it was really awkward and it was like painful. He didn't talk back, he didn't argue, he avoided conflict, and he was just a good kid. He had a very flat emotional effect, like he didn't show much feeling. But one thing about him is that he loved cars and NASCAR. That was his thing. He wasn't a popular kid, but he wasn't bullied either. So on the surface level, I think he was a very normal kid. Now let's talk about Shanann. What was she like? She was born on 10th January 1984. She's also from North Carolina, and her personality was completely different. She was outgoing, strong-willed, social, fun, a fighter. She was a very fun person. She also had lupus and other chronic illnesses, but she pushed through everything with positivity. She was ambitious. She worked in health and wellness marketing, and she was also very active on social media. People who knew her said that she was the type of a person who could light up a room, but she was also open about her struggles, and I think that's the reason why people liked her, because she was very humble. So how did they meet? They met on Facebook. Chris actually sent her a friend request and she accepted it, and when she saw that friend request, she was at a very low point in her life, and she said, you know what, like honestly, I've got like 1,000 friends, another one doesn't hurt. So they connected. If you actually watch some of her Facebook live, she would always speak so nicely of Chris. Like she said that he was super supportive, calm, sweet, and everything that she needed. So they got married in 2012 and moved to Colorado for a fresh start. They had 2 daughters, Bella, born in 2013, and Celeste, born in 2015. Shanann became the face of her MLM job online, and Shanann was also pregnant with their 3rd child, baby Nichol, who was named after the mistress. Like, if you would actually go through her Facebook account, you could tell she had everything. She had a beautiful house and everything, but behind the scene, they were financially stressed. They bought a big house, and honestly, they couldn't afford it. And at one point, they even filed bankruptcy. There were small cracks such as communication issues. Chris would avoid confrontation, and Shanann at that time, she also felt very unsupported, and there was a lot of tension going on between Shanann and Chris's parents. But that didn't scream danger. She thought that, you know what, I don't care. So fast forward to 2018. By the time Chris was working, the company was called Anadarko Petroleum, and Shanann was working from home in a marketing for health fitness MLM. And around June 2018, Chris met a woman from his work called Nichol Kessinger. She was a geologist who was working in the environmental development at the same company. So the way he says it, he says that he first met her when he bought her a broken gas meter to look at, and they would often bump into each other a few times, and then from there it moved from work talk to personal. Shanann took the girls to North Carolina for summer, and Chris actually stayed behind for work. And during those times, Shanann felt like something was wrong because Chris was not replying to her messages. He was also very distant and cold, and he would like give 1-word, 2-word answer even if he did pick up the call, but most of the time he would either cut the call or he would just simply text her, "I'm busy, cannot talk to you." And at that time, Shanann, obviously, poor girl, she felt that Chris was distant, cold, barely texting, and she had no idea why Chris was avoiding. So she would talk about this with her friends. So now let's talk about Nichol Kessinger. Who was she? She wasn't just some random stranger. She was his co-worker. She was a Colorado native, and she was also quite educated. She had her own career in the environmental side in the oil industry. She was quite successful. She also said that when they started talking, Chris told her that he was separated and that he was almost getting a divorce. He admitted that he had 2 daughters, but he made it sound like the marriage was basically over. So Chris met her at work, and she was also an environmental engineer at the same company. So the affair started in June 2018. Chris told Nichol that he was separated and that he was actually getting a divorce. And Nick also said that the reason why she believed him is because he was single, there was no ring, and his energy didn't seem like he was married. And then he also suddenly started working out, like he would buy new clothes, and the affair escalated quite quick because by July they were going on dates, they were spending nights together because obviously Shanann was away. So Chris was basically alone in Colorado, and he used that time to see Nichol a lot more. And not just that, they would also be talking about their future. So while all this was happening, Shanann and the girls were away for several weeks. They were visiting family in North Carolina that summer. Nichol was googling wedding dresses. Chris was planning a vacation. So this wasn't really a fling, you know, like it was quite serious. There was something going on. Later that day, Shanann came home, 13th of August. It was around 2 a.m. And when she came home, like she could tell, like instantly there was something off with Chris. Like Chris wasn't hugging her like you're seeing after 2-3 weeks. Obviously, the first thing that you do is, you know, you reach out for someone, you would hug them or something. But here, Chris didn't even reach out, like he did not hug. And seeing all that, like she could just tell that something was going on. So later that day, she and the girls were reported missing because she missed a doctor's appointment, and her friends also called her. She didn't pick up the call, and what her friends ends up calling Shannon's mom, and they're like, your daughter's not picking up my phone, can you please see what's going on? So what the mom does, her mom ends up calling Shanann. Shanann doesn't pick up, which is very unlikely of her. So what Shannon's friend does, she ends up going to Shannon's house, okay? And while she went there, she also ends up calling the police. And when the police was there, like even he could tell like there was just something off about Chris. When Shannon's friend walked into the house, she noticed that Shanann didn't take her purse. She didn't take her purse, the purse that she normally carries. She didn't take her phone was at home, and she also didn't take her bag. The bag that where she would normally pack clothes for her 2 toddlers. Yeah. She didn't take any of that. So then the neighbors informed the police that they had surveillance cameras. So the police, they checked the surveillance. They also interviewed Chris, and they also looked through Chris's phone. And for some reason, the timeline does not just add up. When Shanann and the kids went missing, Nichol ends up texting Chris saying that if he had anything to do with it. Chris tells her that he had nothing to do with her. The neighbor actually ends up playing the surveillance videos. Suddenly, a scene comes up from the show called American Horror Story, and as you can see, it basically shows that a newborn baby, more like a fetus. When Chris saw that part of the surveillance, which was not supposed to be a part of that surveillance, it just came out of nowhere. You could tell that he was freaking out. And at that moment, the police, like, you know, they were suspecting Chris because he did not seem normal. He was way too calm. He was robotic. He had no emotion, because let me tell you, his wife is 4 months pregnant and missing. Obviously, they're wondering where their wife is, where the kids are. But for Chris, he was way too chill. He kept talking about himself. He was like, oh, I'm so sad. I feel empty. I just want this to be over. Instead of asking the police, like, can you please go do your job? Where are they? What did you find? There was literally nothing. It seemed like he was just trying to gain sympathy. And also for the mother and the 2 kids to be missing. The house was untouched, okay? The front door was locked. Shannon's car was still home. Her phone was inside. Her purse was inside. Her meds were inside. So no mother just walks off leaving everything behind. And his story kept changing every time. He said that they had an emotional conversation, and not just that, he also said in the beginning, he was like, you know what, my wife's not missing, she's probably at a friend's house. Like, his story kept changing every single time the police asked. At first, the first story was that he had an emotional conversation. The second one was that he said that she went to a friend's house. The third one was that she left with the kids and he has no idea where he is. Like, he kept contradicting himself. Even the neighbors actually went up to the police and was like, there's definitely something off with Chris, because he would never back his truck into the garage like that. So all this made him the primary suspect within hours. So at this point, the police suggested the polygraph, and it was not random, it was strategic. They already believed that he was the killer, but they didn't have any physical evidence yet. And mind you, polygraphs are not allowed in court, but they're fantastic for psychological pressure. So at this point, they just wanted him to trap himself and see what he said. And let me tell you, if they failed, they could use that to confront him harder. So they knew that he was the type that would avoid conflict, you know. And so they asked Chris, they were like, Chris, we're gonna have to do a polygraph test. It's fine if you say no, but it's just something that we do. You know, it's not mandatory, but like, you know, it would be nice if you could say yes. Mind you, people like Chris, he's calm, quiet, passive, and he's also not the type that would, like, you know, crumble under pressure. When the polygraph was suggested, Chris said yes immediately. Like, he didn't even take a second. So the reason why he said yes is because he wanted to look innocent. He thought that he could beat it if he just stayed calm, you know, like psychology and all that. And guilty people often over cooperate. So basically Chris thought that if I say no, they'll probably think that I'm guilty, and if I say yes, I'll just hope for the best. But one thing about polygraph is that you can't calm your way out, and he failed miserably. They also used a technique called good cop, bad cop. So they didn't yell at him, and they were very empathetic actually. They acted like they were very concerned, and they were like, listen, we know you're a good man. We know something happened. People normally snaps. Maybe Shanann did something and you reacted that way. They were giving him excuses, you know, because guilty people look for excuses. And that's when they asked, do you want to talk to your dad? And at that moment, Chris said, yes, I would like to talk to my dad. So when his dad walked in, Chris finally felt safe, okay? And they knew that since Chris wouldn't confess to the detectives, he would definitely confess to his parent, and he did. He basically told his dad, saying, I killed her only because she killed the babies, which was a lie. And that was his first confession. The detectives knew immediately that this is the crack that they needed. So here's the point. Why did he first blame Shanann? He blamed Shanann because guilty people do it because they know that the truth is horrific. He tried to make himself look like a victim just so that he could reduce the guilt and get sympathy. But the police already knew that he was lying. And here's how they got the full confession. The detectives later told Chris that his story does not match up because of evidence. Shanann did not harm the kids, and the forensics also proved it. And he knew that he couldn't keep the lie going on forever. So they kept visiting him, they kept asking him questions. He kept chipping away slowly. Later, eventually, Chris admitted that he alone killed all 3 people. So here's what happened. Shanann comes home at 2 a.m. She ends up freshening up and she goes to bed. Chris wakes Shanann up around 4 to 5 a.m. And then when she woke up, obviously Chris starts getting ready for work, and not just that, Chris also wanted to have the talk with her. Chris tells Shanann that he is done with her and he no longer wants to be married to her as he is seeing someone else. Shanann replies that Chris won't be seeing the kids anymore, and then obviously they both get into an argument, and he then strangles her. And one thing about Shanann, when she was getting strangled, Shanann didn't even fight back. I think it's like a shock, you know, like someone that you really, really love is doing this to you. It's like a shock, you know, like you can't believe this is happening. So I think her brain was processing the moment that, you know, that she was being strangled by the one she loves. Bella, who is 4 years old, she comes into the room and she saw that by the time her dad was done strangling Shanann, he was wrapping her body in a blanket, and then he carries her to his truck. The 4-year-old then asks if Shanann was okay, and he doesn't say anything. He continues to put Celeste and Bella in the car, and then he starts to drive. He then stops his car near an oil field, and then he starts to smother Celeste and Bella, and then he dumps their body in an oil tank. He dumps Bella and Celeste in 2 different oil tanks, and then he buries his wife's body in the ground nearby. Chris, he did plead guilty in November 2018. He did receive multiple life sentences with 0 possibility of parole, and he will never get out. He did get transferred to a maximum security prison in Wisconsin. So where is everyone today? So Chris did plead guilty in November 2018. He does receive multiple life sentences with 0 possibility of parole. He is isolated, heavily monitored, and he is also super religious and spends most of his time reading Bible or writing letters. Some people write to him, he responds because he has nobody. And no, he is not in a relationship. He did say that he thinks about what he did every day. He is also reading the kid's favorite story every day. He has a picture of his family. So is he in touch with Nichol? No. Nichol completely cut ties with him the moment she realized what happened. She also cooperated with the police afterwards and changed her name and moved away and disappeared from the public for good, and she has zero contact with Chris. His family, he is still in touch with his family. They do visit him occasionally, but the relationship is strained with Shannon's family as they want no contact with him or whatsoever. Okay, so before I end the story, I do want to talk about something that is really important, and that is safety. Cases like this remind us that evil doesn't always look like a monster. It sometimes comes from someone that is quiet, charming, who avoids conflict. And here are the signs to look out for in any relationship. Number one could be sudden emotional distance. If a man is just not being affectionate anymore, suddenly he's being disconnected for no reason and not paying attention to you, please take that sign. Because one thing about men is that, yes, they are monsters, but they're also gentle creatures. They don't know how to be rude, but they will be rude, they will be violent if you do not know how to take no for an answer. So ladies, please, what happened to Shannon really is tragic. Tomorrow you could be Shannon, I could be Shannon, anyone could be Shannon. So if a man is suddenly emotionally distant, please do yourself a favor and pack your bags. Do not stay there and wait for him to change his mind, because he's not, okay? He's not going to change his mind. So please do yourself a favor and walk away gracefully. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching and staying with me through this heavy story time. This has been a cracked case. Please keep Shannon, Bella, Celeste and baby Nico in your thoughts, and I'll see you in my next video. Until then, goodbye.